Okay, so this is a video about how I work in the ends for the pattern that I'm doing at the moment, which is an ogee Mystic Lantern granny square. Not sure if that's how you pronounce it, ogee, not sure. Okay, so this is a hot water bottle because it's blooming freezing in the UK at the moment. So what I saw this tip from Nautical Knits, who I'll tag, for how you wrap in the tail to start off with. So I've made my first chain and I'm going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I'm going to join the chain. That. And then I'm going to chain 2 before, like that. And then what Nautical Knits suggests is that you wrap the tail around the ring. So this is a little bit fiddly. It's worse the first time you do it, and it doesn't get much less fiddly, to be fair, but once you've done a few stitches into the ring, it starts to hold itself together and it all becomes much more easy. So I press my finger and thumb together to hold that space, and you want it relatively tight, not too baggy, because otherwise it will get in the way as you're trying to crochet through it. So I just wrap it around and then sort of pull it so that there's a bit of tension on there, and tuck the tail in. This is the most tricky bit, is when you've got a tiny little bit of tail to get in. Put that in there like that. Perfect. Okay, so that now is our ring, and now the pattern calls for 2 double crochets into that chain space. So yarn over, and then we're going to go right into the middle. This is where initially you have to be careful to make sure you're through all of the loops. Pull the yarn through, yarn over and through the first 2. Whoop. Yarn over through the next 2. Yarn over the hook. Make sure that's all. Just let that bit hang loose into the centre. Yarn over. Pull through 2. Yarn over. Pull through 2. Okay, so then that's our first section on the pattern, and you can see we've got a hole through the middle, and our first stitches are going through all of the loops. Okay, so now we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to do our next set of 3 double knit stitches. So make that hole nice and clear and go into the hole in the middle and bring the yarn back through, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, yarn over back into the middle, yarn over. These first 2 sets are the most difficult. After that it starts to get much easier, she says. There we go. Yarn over. Okay, so now we've got 2, and we're going to chain 3 again. 1, 2, 3, yarn over, and now we're going to do our next set of 3 double knits in the middle. And now you can see it's starting to get a bit easier to manipulate that, she says, before she tangles the hook in the chain another 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. Yarn over, through 2, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, 3 double crochet. So now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to chain, we need to do 6 in total for this first round. Chain 3, yarn over, back into the middle for the next set of 3 double crochets. It's definitely an art, learning how to hold the crochet in the centre of the camera. There we go. So you can see that now it's becoming much easier to make that neatly into the centre. And we've got a little tail hanging because of the length of the thing, but that's going to be easy enough to just snip off. Okay, so now we have 5 of our sets of double crochets. And now we're going to do our final set of 3 double crochets to make 6. So, into the middle, 1, and into the middle again, 2, and yarn over into the middle for the final time, 2, 3, 2. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So to finish off, we chain 3, 2, 3, and then we join to our first stitch. I'm going to ignore this tail for now. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So I'm just going to tuck it out of the way and we're going to ignore it for a minute. So I'm going to pop that in there and just slip stitch to finish this off. And then, bear with me while I reach for the scissors. Okay, and then we're going to cut off, giving ourselves a bit of a tail. And yarn over and pull through to finish off. So this is round 1 of the ogee square. And you can see you end up with whatever a 6-sided shape is. Pentagon is 5-sided, octagon is 8-sided, heptagon 6-sided, I'm not sure. Okay, so the other tip that I came across, which I think is really helpful about weaving in ends, is to then weave through the tail before you stop, before you finish and move on to your next square. So one of the things I've learnt through trial and error so far is that if you work the tails in and then snip them off, as you add your next round and you move the square around just in the process of crocheting, the snipped off ends will start to work out. So what I'm doing now, which I find works better, is I just leave them long at this stage. Once I've put the whole blanket together, then it will be really straightforward to just go through and snip off all the worked in ends. And at that point, I'm hoping that it won't have so much movement that they'll start working their way out again. So with round 1, the original tail is woven into that ring, and that little end there can be snipped off later. And then what you do with the final tail is you weave it into this stitch. I can't remember who I saw this from. It might also have been Nautical Knits, but I've tried this a few times now and it works really well for this pattern. So basically you just put the hook into the back loop and pull the tail through. So you're effectively just overlaying the stitch itself. And I do this for a few. So you can see hook goes into the back loop and pull the tail through. And then you go, hook goes into the next back loop, pull the tail through. Hook goes into the next back loop. And I tend to do about 2 sides, and I stop in a hole because the next round is going to do double crochets into that chain space, and so that will give a bit more binding in to the tail. So when I'm doing the last one of these, I go into the back loop from the back of the stitch, not from the front. So before we were going in from the front of the stitch, and now I'm going to go in from the back of the stitch to pull the tail through to the back. So I just wrap the wool round like that and pull it through. And that now is ready to have the next round crocheted in it. And I will just leave that tail hanging free until right at the very end, when I've put all the squares together, granny squares together, and then I will go through and snip them all off. But as I work the next rounds over where I've woven in the ends, that will also give it some more stability and keep it in place. And they're relatively easy to avoid. So this is an example of round 1. Follow and check back for round 2.